Welcome to an episode of Men Let's Talk, the place where men can come, hopefully, for tools, resources, and food for thought to get through this thing we call life. Because as men, we've been diminished, we've been devalued, and quite frankly, we've been made invalid. And it's interesting that invalid and invalid is spelled the same way. You know, an invalid is a sick person that can't do anything for themselves from a catastrophic disease. Well, that's where we are right now. We're invalid, we're sick, but it's an intentional sickness brought on by the powers that be. And it led me to come and say, you know what? As men, we gotta have dialogue, but it can't be the same old bullshit dialogue that's been going on. But we've got to be real about shit. And so I'm here. That's why I'm here. And I hope that it helps men, you know, because you got to look at it. Look at where we are. Look at where we are. We're at a point where everything that's plagued across screens and across the media is LGBTQ, Black Girl Magic, Me Too movement, and what's the other thing they say? And I haven't seen anybody like me do this before. All code. So we've been brought to the point to where our own women don't even like us. They just see us as an instrument, as a tool. That's all we are. That's all we are. So we've totally gotten out of divine order. So as I said, there are no support groups that I have seen for men. And the ones that I have encountered, they regurgitate the same shit I've heard for decades and decades, because I've been here for a minute. For decades and decades. And it's just really a perpetuation of what the overall agenda is anyway from the powers that be. So it's no wonder why we're acting out the way we're acting out. And that's why I call this the psychology of guns and violence, because it's all brainwashing. It's all mental manipulation as to why we're where we are. And why these young men, especially in the Black community, function and act the way that they act. You think that you're doing something because it's what's in you, or because that's the way you think, or your action is based on you solely, and you don't realize that you've been conditioned to act the way that you act. You've been conditioned to act the way you act. But let's dig into it a little bit further. You know, my first encounter with it was years ago when I started seeing a shift. I mean, my first encounter with feeling like, you know, there was an injustice for me as a man was years ago when I was a single parent. And just like a woman, I'm a single parent. I need resources for my kid. I need medical capabilities for my kid. I go to DFACS. That's what they tell you to do. I'm trying to be a responsible parent. Hell, I'm young, in my 20s, early 20s. And I go to DFACS. And this is before everything became so damn technical and touch screens and all these other things they have that you can probably do now. But I went and I said, hey, you know, I need to fill out an application, you know, to try to get resources for my kid. They looked at me. First of all the employees were women. The whole room was women back then. I was the only man in a room full of women. There was probably 100 women asking for the same thing that they were asking, but I needed it just as much as they needed it. And so the woman reluctantly shoved the application to me. And I was like, I said, okay, whatever. I got to do this for my kid. So as I'm filling it out, everything is worded as if though a woman was filling out the application. Where's the missing father? Not where's the missing parent. Everything was worded like that. How much does the father make? Those kind of questions. Not how much does the other parent make or spouse make or whatever, ex make. As if though they assume that the father automatically is the missing parent, which was discriminatory. Back then, I didn't have it in me. Today, if I was in that situation, I would make a big deal about it and probably try to sue the government for it, because that's discriminatory for a man that has to go and seek resources. And maybe it's probably changed today, I don't know. But to finish that story, I went on and when I sat down with the person that I had to speak to, she said, "Why are you here?" I said, I'm a single parent with no resources and I need medical assistance and I need to be able to feed my kid for this current situation I'm in. She scolded me with two other women standing beside her and told me, "You should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself as a man for coming down here having to ask for some resources." Okay, but is it not the same situation as a woman that needs to feed the kid? Because I'm a man, so I shouldn't come down here and just struggle and allow my kid to suffer and not eat. You're overlooking, you're missing the bigger picture here. You worried about my gender when there's still a kid here that needs to be provided for. And that's what kind of made me open my eyes and just start watching things. Way back then, I started to watch. And just watching the mental conditioning of what they do to you and what they have done to us as men. Because first of all, and I will touch on this in the future about, women as well. I don't deny anybody's success. I want to see everybody rise. But when you talk to a woman and the first thing they say, and I have 3 daughters. All of my kids are women. I love my kids. Want to see them do the best that they can do in life. But when you ask a woman, they say, "Well, we just want equality." Well, the last time I looked, equality meant equal, level playing field. That's what equality is. And then when you push back a little bit more, and then they say, "Well, you as men, you've already had your turn. It's our turn." That's not equality. Anytime somebody has a turn, that means that somebody else is not getting a turn and is not there. So that means you preside over them because you're having a turn. That's not equality. That's superiority. And that's what they're really asking. Because if you wanted equality, you want it to be equal. Now, yeah, it would fluctuate in certain, industries and salaries and stuff up and down. Sometimes one might make more, man might make more, whatever the case may be. But overall, it would basically be equality. You wouldn't just necessarily want a turn and say somebody else has had their turn already, meaning that you don't need a turn now. That's not equality. And so that's where they've kind of confused it too, by using women's, which I would say they need opportunity, they need openings, but they skew it to the point to where it begins to be a thing of superiority, where they take pride in stepping on a man in the name of equality that is really superiority. That's one of our problems. That is one of our problems. Because what you don't realize is the overall plan is to divide. That's the overall agenda. Why? Why divide? Because you learn this in elementary school. The easiest way to control a people or a group of people is what? Divide and conquer. Anything, divide and conquer. That's why if you're on a job or certain situations, they'll sit you down and say, now, you don't share this with any other employee. Because if everybody gets wind of it, it's a larger group. It's hard to conquer that. So they tell you don't talk about certain things in the workplace or whatever, certain conditions, and you may know something that somebody else may not know, or as far as pay or receiving maybe a shift differential or something like that. And they don't want you to talk about it because other people aren't getting it, which they should be getting. It's the same thing. The powers that be want to keep us divided in as many ways as possible. In as many ways as possible. You know, and they'll use anything for divide. Body type, intelligence, gender, wealth, envy. You know, they're just, I mean, division is just, in your nationalities, all sorts of division. But you got to think about it. You know, I look at it as like a pizza. A typical pizza comes in 8 slices. Comes in 8 slices. And if you divide that again and cut it up, then you got 16 slices. And then if you divided that again and chopped it up again, you'd have 32 slices. Now with that 32, you probably only have like what is a little strip of pizza, a slither of pizza, which would be easy for you to devour. If you were going to eat it, you could probably drop that in your mouth and swallow it. And of course, you're not going to get full. Whereas a larger slice out of the pizza that still has 8 slices, you would have to hold and work at it to eat it. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. They want us to be in little slithers or groups because it's easier to conquer. Because they don't want it to be just the 8 slices, and then, God forbid, 2 of the slices out of the 8 get together. That's even a bigger problem to conquer. But that's part of the mentality that brings them to condition us mentally. So let's go into images of confusion, which is a buildup that leads these young men to not know who they are. Because as I said, there are no groups that know where to go. And because of mental conditioning, women have a place to go. They can either be, a woman can be anything. They can be vulnerable. They'll get support for that. Oh, you need some help. You get a pat on the back. If they're hard and they're tough and they're in the workplace, you get a pat on the back for that. You know, you're strong or whatever. There's a support group for everything. But a man, we don't have that. And we should amongst each other. And we don't. We say things like, man, I'm glad I'm not you. Or man up. Or, you know, keep your head up, man. Stay up. But no real substance or support, and walk away, and you just left there to, you know, try to figure whatever your situation is out on your own. And yet you still got this thing in your mind that you need to be a man and you need to be tough. And mind you, Hollywood loves to place images of toughness, and then they dangle things in front of you like, you know, the extreme success. When you're looking at TV or looking at stars or whatever, that's extreme success. So, especially when it comes to black men, they place you in a place that is poverty-stricken. But mind you, poverty itself doesn't make you have a a kill, lie, cheat, and steal mentality. So your area, if people had the right mentality, a poverty-stricken area would just be that. Poverty-stricken, meaning that there's not a lot of money coming into the households that are in that particular neighborhood. That doesn't make the violence. The violence comes from, and the mentality to cheat and steal comes from you looking at America's images of extreme success and buying into it and feeling like you're not a part of it. And that's what they want you to do. And that builds up anger. Then you couple that with not having possibly the best educational resources where you live. And then you have a culture now where you see that women are being praised and LGBTQ is being praised. You don't ever see images of men being praised. So now you devalue yourself. It's a mental conditioning. So now they've got you poor enough, angry enough, and greedy enough to want the things that they show you is success. Just to show you how it spills over to everything. And of course, it's in social media. And women aren't exempt from this. Everybody is not. This is not a race-based thing that I'm talking about, because all men need help, but particularly in the Black community, we have different issues. But I mean, you see women on social media. Everybody on social media is trying to present themselves in a certain way. And that plays a part too. You couple that with what I just said prior, and then you see all these images of people and you're like, wow, I'm going out bad. And it makes you even hungrier and even greedier, and you're angry because you think you're missing out on something that others have and you just don't have it. To the point that they got women all across social media, 40 and 50 years old and old, acting like little girls. That's what they are, little girls. They want the little sparkly things, like and driving and like little Barbie-like girls. So where is the, even with that, even I'm talking about me, where's the separation for the daughter to see the adult mother figure when she's accumulating the same things that you want to accumulate and acting like those things are valuable? There needs to be a distinction to say, hey, okay, wait a minute, now I'm more poised and I'm a woman, so that the young girl can see, okay, this is a phase that I'm going through. And then, you grow up and you know what direction to go in. But if you look on social media, you'll see there's no different than a young girl and a woman that's 50 years old. They do the same thing. Same thing, mental conditioning. This is, and I don't know why politicians, like I said, don't talk about this, or anybody talks about this. All they want to do is talk about community centers and, more money and more jail time. But why won't they talk about mental conditioning? Because they created the mental condition that's making all this transpire. And it was done intentionally. So if you want to fix the problem of guns and violence, you've got to do what I would call reverse mental conditioning, to begin to teach the morals and values that once existed. And it will still take as many decades as it has now to get to the generation that believes in those wholeheartedly, that now it begins to trickle down and it works. So you have to re-interject shame. There's no shame anymore. We made mistakes with that. You shouldn't be embarrassed about anything, but we don't ever elaborate. We make statements. So no, you shouldn't be embarrassed if you come from poverty or whatever, but there should be some moral shame. There's no moral shame, because shame, sometimes I call it healthy shame. Healthy shame, if you feel like this is not something, or as we say in the hood, it's not a good look, or it's to be frowned upon by the community as a whole, you're less likely to move in that direction. But it's because you have support. But we created a situation where get it by any means, get it how you live. That kind of dumb conditioning, mental conditioning. So when you put all that together and dealing with normal issues of growing up as a young man and rejection, and women are even harsher today because they've been taught that, and this man has nowhere to go, and you're trying to figure it out yourself, and you feel like you're angry. And now you're an emotional wreck. So situations, the way you deem to get out of situations is, that's why I say it always amazes me how people will listen and follow the person that's the loudest in the room. And I've seen that because they're so confident and loud, but they're confident and loud in that which they don't know. Because they don't even know what they're talking about, but they're just bold enough to be loud, but don't know what the hell they're talking about. And people follow that. Because you feel like there's no way that person can be that confident and not know what the hell they're talking about. But generally, the person that is the most quiet in the room probably has the most intelligence. And is not gonna, fight for a seat at the table. When I say fight, to be heard, they'll wait their turn to speak. That's probably the person that you should follow. But like I said, I'm going to keep reiterating the term mental conditioning. So you got the man in poverty, you got his lack of education, you got him greedy to want the things that you've shown him. And by the way, those things that they show you, as I said, are extreme wealth. Extreme wealth. That's why knowledge is power. Let me put up a graphic and show you that what you see isn't. You would look at TV and you think, oh my God, so many people are doing well and so many people have money. And, and when you're young, you want things. That's just a normal tendency as a young person. You want things, but, when you get older, if you develop, because the logical side of the brain doesn't develop until you're 25 anyway, before you start assessing risk. That's a scientific fact. But the graphic that I'm showing you right now, as you can see, only 5% of Americans make $250,000 or more. And we have what, 330 million people, 340 million, somewhere around there, I think it went up. And only 5% of those people make $250,000 a year. So you're being tricked. You're being tricked. The majority, they're faking. They're faking. Don't fall for the fake out. But as a young person, you're just going by what you see. And then you're left out there all by yourself. Then you got a mother who has been conditioned too. She's still a woman, so she's been conditioned. So although you may get the compassion from your mom, there's still a certain element of conditioning with that. I remember talking to a young lady that I saw how she interacted and treated men, and it wasn't good. And so I told her, I said, when your son begins to date or whatever, I said, you'll probably change then, because you're not going to want a woman to treat your son like how I see you treat men and how you talk about how you treat men. And she said, oh no. I said, you wouldn't have a problem with it? And she said, no. And I just thought that was crazy. I said, so you want to see a woman treat your son the way that you treat me? She said, if that's what it was, I just tell him, well, obviously you ain't man up. You see what I'm talking about? Your own flesh and blood, and you wouldn't try to steer him away from that kind of behavior or frown upon that behavior. You just say, hey, he deserves what he gets because he ain't manning up. That's crazy. And that would be that person's mother. So where do you go? And then there's no father in the household as well. Where do you go? So you see how we get there? We've got to change mindset. That's how we're going to solve the problem. The psychology of guns and violence. That's how we're going to solve the problem. And just to show you another way they play with your mind, you know, it used to always, I noticed how, I don't know what cars they use today, but I know back in the day, a lot of the police cars were Crown Victorias and Impalas. And I knew people that got locked up. Some of my boys got locked up, people got locked up or whatever. And as soon as they get out of jail and want to go buy a car, the first thing they go buy is an Impala and a Crown Victoria. That's a sick mentality. You're sick. You should want to be as far away from that vehicle as you possibly can. But yet you want to ride around 24 hours a day in the same kind of vehicle that takes you to be incarcerated and that they come to hunt you down in. You want to drive it every day. That's mental torture. Something's wrong with that picture. Because human nature is to get away from the thing that harms you. So you see how we've been made to be sick. Now, before I wrap this up, because I think you get it by now, that it's a mental conditioning. I'm trying to get you to open your eyes up. And that was basically the object of this video, to just start to get you to open your eyes up, pay attention, you know. But I will be touching on other topics of finance, life insurance, anything that I think can be beneficial to help a man figure out his life. I'm going to try to research those topics and try to bring it to you. But before I go, I want to give you some other images of confusion. You know, I was looking at a major network morning program, and this particular morning, they said that they were gonna talk to little girls. They were like very little girls. I don't know, maybe was it kindergarten or something? They were little girls. And they said, you know, they were asking them based on, you know, about relationships, what is you know, when you reach the age of a relationship or whatever, what are men supposed to do? And they were saying things like, and reinforcing that, you know, well, a man is supposed to go out and work and take care of you, and you're a princess, and do things to make you happy. And they were telling the girls that is correct because, you know, you are a princess, you are to be respected, and things of that nature. Nothing about mutual respect or working together. I didn't hear anything like that. It was just more or less a guy's supposed to be sweet to you at all times, and go out and do things for you and take care of you and respect you because you are a princess and you are great. So probably about 3 weeks later, they did it with the same age group, and they did it with a group of boys. But this time they said, how do you feel about it? And, you know, the boys said, well, you're supposed to go out and work and, you know, take care of the kids. That's why they go to work or whatever, you know, in the best way they could because they were young or whatever. And they reinforce that, yeah, you're supposed to do this and you're supposed to always be sweet to a lady and all these different things. They never said anything about building their self-esteem, that you're a king, you're to be respected. They didn't say all those things that they said to a woman. All they said was what you need to do for a woman. And I just found that shocking. I don't know if it went over anybody else's head, but I saw that. You know, why didn't they tell the boys, you're king, you're great, you're smart? You know, and yet again, nothing about mutual respect. So you see, a mental conditioning leads up to where we are. So if we're gonna solve guns and violence, we've got to work on this mental conditioning. You're not gonna get to a point of stopping guns and violence until you're able to work on the mental component of it. I don't care how much money we put and how many jails we build. There is a mental component involved in it. Until we stop that mental component, we will not stop guns and violence. We have got to some way reach our youthful teens and let them know that what they see is really not what is. And yeah, it may hurt, you know, and the bashing that you get or rejection that you get from women because of the mentality today, it hurts. But we've got to create a circle and a unit to where we still grow up healthy as men. And hopefully one day reunite with our women, because they've been conditioned too. And somewhat meet in the middle and not allow the powers that be to divide us, to create the chaos that they have created. But there are several agendas at work. There are several agendas at work with this too. Because the killing that's taking place, you're doing the bidding of the powers that be. And I say this to anybody, white, black, or whatever. I mean, if you really want to see racism, you think you're seeing it now with some of the injustices and George Floyd and all these things that have happened. If you really want to see racism, I would say to black young men mainly, and just everybody, stop killing. Stop killing each other. If black people drop the murder rate across the country, I would even say 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, you would see outright racism. You would see outright racism because there's a quota that has to be met and the agenda has to continue. And right now, you're doing the killing for the powers that be. But if you stop it, they still have to accomplish their numbers. But I'm just here to give you tools and give you food for thought. If you're listening, think about what I've said. Come back whenever you see new episodes. I'm here for men and boys and men who want to be real men. Not men who fight back through violence and weapons, but men who fight with their minds, who fight with logic and know how to win in that way. Oh yeah, before I forget it, make sure that you go into the description, click on the link for the store, and get you one of these shirts if you support and believe the precedent that I'm trying to set and the kind of knowledge that I hope to deliver over time. It's a Men We Still Matter shirt. This is a 2022 version, but the 2023s will be up real soon. So until next time, this has been Men Let's Talk, and I'm out. Gas Chamber Records, them Heavyweightaz, Kno Mercy and Big Rob.
Code Red Beats.